thank you for everyone who's joining myself today. We're going to talk a little bit about some perspectives on getting seniors into lifting and just improving their physical activity, just kind of the culture around it. And who I wanted to bring on today to talk with is one of my mentors that's helped me in my early career in and out of college, Tim Eilers. I'm going to give you a brief introduction of him, and then he can kind of tell you a little bit more about his experience in the fitness industry. But Tim was my intern boss at a senior living community where he taught me numerous different exercise selections, kind of how to work with just special needs populations in general. And then after that, he actually helped in getting me hired onto the same place where we did a lot of the same things. We had a really good work connection and helped a lot of people. And now we're kind of moving past that and trying to help a different set of eyes. So, Tim, I'm going to let you talk just briefly about like general fitness experience over your basically since you got out of college, and then also on top of that, experiences with special needs populations and seniors are kind of mixed bag. So,
Sure thing. Thanks for having me on, Logan. Um, so I started off when I graduated college, really in kind of the athletic development world. I worked as a strength and conditioning coach, and really I kind of considered that the end all be all of fitness. Um, and it was through some different experiences that I had initially working at Mercy Hospital, where I had the opportunity to work with individuals coming out of post therapy. Um, and eventually, through that position, I ended up being the head trainer for the Thrive cancer exercise program. And then I started to work with some individuals, who were really trying to just live a better life. Um, and that really kind of changed my perspective a little bit from going into the fitness industry. I really kind of thought outside of athletics, it was less academic, maybe a little bit more boring and routine. Um, but it was through those kind of initially those experiences that I realized I really enjoyed working with people who, one, have a lot to gain from fitness, and two, just people who really need some of that guidance. Um, after that, after Mercy, I ended up working shoot, as a personal trainer for Ryerson Fitness. I worked as a branch director for the YMCA. Um, I worked at Whirlpool as their wellness director. And then I worked with Logan Grand Living.
nice. Yeah, one of my favorite quotes I actually remember you said that kind of stuck with me as well was about feeling like that you can give more to somebody's life than a couple seconds off of their 40 time, which I think is super like true. I mean, the reason why I actually got into fitness was more for like improving people's health. And actually, personally, like my whole family is just very unhealthy, overweight, health issues in general. So I basically didn't want to go along that same path. So I kind of I appreciated that. I mean, you originally went in for strength and conditioning, but kind of had a pivot, and I think that's um, a cool thing to consider. So yeah, so that's Tim. He's had a lot of good experiences working with a lot of different people and very well rounded. So basically, the topic for today, when it comes to physical activity and just lifting and getting people moving in general, you typically think of kind of a middle aged person, your average Joe, just wanting to get into shape. Maybe it's some high schoolers getting ready to lift. And for us, we experienced something much different in that a lot of the individuals we worked with were um, had numerous different comorbidities, diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, etc. And for some of these individuals, this was the first time they've ever been physically active at all, which, you know, for us was kind of surprising, I'm sure, because we've been lifting since, the conception of our bodies. But for these individuals, it's not the same. So I wanted to talk today about kind of the importance of physical activity and lifting for seniors, kind of just the current atmosphere of how things are for them, why this might be, kind of some of the stigma and perceptions around it, and then what can health professionals do. Just some simple put into place tasks to kind of help break down some of those barriers to getting seniors into lifting or just any special needs population in general. So the first thing I guess that's important is to just look at why is this important. So for me, the importance for seniors is that nowadays healthcare is becoming so much better, and with the increase in modern technology and medicine, people are living a lot longer. And just because they're living a lot longer doesn't necessarily they're living better and more fulfilling lives. We know through numerous studies and just seeing hands on how neglecting your body can really lead to a decreased quality of life over the years. So that's what I think is one of the most important things to get them involved. Tim, I don't know if you have anything different, kind of the same thing.
I mean, I have a similar viewpoint to that. I mean, it's God, what's the quote I'm trying to think of? No, it'll come to me later. But um, it's about quality of life, not just quantity of life. Um, it's about people being able to do the things that they want to do, and that when I talked about being kind of pulled from the athletics world, that just seemed so much more important to me. To talk to someone who was, maybe like just for example, like a lifelong gardener, that's what their absolute passion was. And they had to give it up because they thought they should, or because someone, told them there's nothing they can do about pain in their knee, or they can never do this, that, or the other. Um, and I just think that creates a huge disservice to people. And that's something I learned a lot more of when I was working at Grand Living, um, in the retirement community, is that, people would go to their physicians, and their physicians would just, and this is a broad generalization, mind you, but they would say, no, there's nothing we can do. Um, Essentially stop doing those things, just be safe, don't hurt yourself. Um, and I think that obviously it's very important to be safe, but you can be more safe through doing physical activity, through practicing your balance and things of that nature.
Yeah, I think sometimes in the like physician world of uh, just giving advice to patients, it's the risk versus reward is not often accounted for. And for them, physical activity is an increasingly high risk with,
Mm,
to them, probably at least moderate reward, which that's kind of part of the stigma is I think they think people are just going to go out and like go ham on a treadmill and like hurt themselves and just go fully in. And that's why I think it's important to have like competent individuals working with them to say like, hey, you can do just this tiny amount of activity and you're going to reap a huge benefit. But unfortunately, I don't think there's enough formal training in the current healthcare world, physicians and doctors, that they know that, or to steer their patients in the right direction. So from a lack of thinking that they're helping and doing more good, they're kind of flipping the script and potentially hurting them long term, which is really unfortunate. But Yeah, so that's again kind of the importance, at least what we think. And we kind of touched on the current atmosphere. I definitely think that kind of senior exercise, individuals with special needs exercising, the understanding and benefit for it has become better, much better than it used to be. There's a lot more people specializing in this stuff. But there's also, as Tim and I both realize, there's still a lot of hesitancy for some of these individuals to get started. And next, I just wanted to talk about potentially a few reasons why this is. Um, Tim, I don't know if you want to start, if you had a list at all. I have like four things that I think are, some of the potential reasons. I can go through a few of mine. You can go through a few of yours if you want to add on.
Sure. I mean, I think fear is always high on people's lists, especially if you have any of the comorbidities, or even things like arthritis. People, even though movement helps arthritis, people are just prone to think, rest that, and instead of move. So I think there's a lot of fear, and not even just fear for participants, but I also think there's a little bit of fear from professionals as well. Um, Not necessarily always knowing how to handle. I mean, obviously, if you're going to handle a full range of medical experiences, which obviously you should only do if you're qualified research to understand, that's something, doctors have to go to school for a really long time for. Obviously they have to know a lot more, treat a lot more,
Mhm.
but it's an intimidating thing to work with people who, you're just theoretically, maybe just the basic education you got didn't necessarily prepare you for, and it puts you into a position where you have to do some research and have to really reach out and see what's going to be best for those individuals.
Sure. Apply yourself a little more and just kind of, um, yeah, definitely. Yeah, that is one of the things that I put on here is just being scared. Um, and I think of so many times of like um, when we were working with people, they talk about like, oh, I hear my bones grinding away, or like, oh, like this can't be good and stuff. And whether or not that was actually causing some, physiological change or doing something bad for their health, quote unquote, just that fear makes it even worse. So it's like, yeah, just kind of the same example with your arthritis with the bones. Maybe it's going to help me feel better, but just the fact that I can hear it, it's more fear. I don't want to do it. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most important things, especially as you get older. Maybe a little more dependent on others too.
Mhm.
Definitely. Um, One of the things that I had next was the feeling as if it's almost useless. So, for us, when we're younger, we usually start getting into exercise and physical activity to look a little bit better, lose a little bit of weight. We have these goals in mind, and we kind of have we know what we're getting into. Individuals who are older or have special needs, they may have gotten to a point where they are so dependent on others, or basically so given up on life that they don't feel like anything that they're going to do from physical activity is really going to benefit them. Um, Obviously, this is in part to the professional then to try to kind of steer them in the right direction. Like, why do you think that? What are some things that you can't do right now? And well, that's interesting you think that way. These are potentially some things that exercise can help with. I think it comes with time and just understanding that communicating is important. But Tim, what do you feel on just seniors or just individuals who haven't maybe even just exercised at all, feeling like it's kind of a useless endeavor?
Well, like you said, there's a lot of people that do feel that way. Um, but it's just simply not the case. The human body is, I mean, part of the reason I even went into this field is because the human body is so amazing and adaptable at even at advanced ages. The ability to improve or to fight decline or um, so it's a matter of just doing things smartly when you get into it. If you've never worked out before and you have special needs, then you probably should seek out a professional that knows, specifically what they're doing, instead of just going out and, potentially doing something dangerous. But either way, that's going to be something that really can benefit you, even if it's, um, like I was saying before, even if it's stopping the progression of things or keeping you where you're at. There's improvement that can be had too, but there's always benefit to be had from physical activity. Increased blood flow to everywhere in your body. That's exercises. One of the things that helps combat Alzheimer's and even neurological, because you have increased blood flow to your brain. I mean, there's just so many benefits from doing those things.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I agree. It's kind of never ending loop, and some of that thing. And when you do it too, you talk about like endorphins and good hormones going through your body. You do it more, you feel better. You feel better because you do it more. Yeah, and honestly, I think when it comes to it being useless, um, I have to sometimes be like blunt with people and say like, do you enjoy being able to walk up and down stairs by yourself? Do you enjoy being able to get out of a chair by yourself? I know you're only, maybe younger people, 20, 30, a little bit older, 50, 60. You may be able to do it right now, but there's going to be a point that's challenging in your life. So, doing what you can to kind of alleviate those potential occurrences when you get older is super, super important. Because if you don't, that's when you are in a nursing home and you have people changing you. And again, that's super drastic, but it's true. I mean,
Yeah.
it should be scary that you could get to that point. And just like I use money analogy a lot when it comes to physical activity, because I think people like really see money as like, yeah, that makes sense. So you're not going to go out and do stupid stuff with your money your whole life and expect to be a billionaire. Just like if you neglect and do stupid stuff with your body your entire life, you're going to have a quote unquote millionaire body, as in like no aches and pains, you can move fine. Um, so yeah, it's kind of like a scare tactic thing at some point, but it's just all about how you frame your words. So
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think it's not a scare tactic. It's just addressing what's important to people. I know I told you a story a long time ago when I was at Whirlpool of I kind of consider this individual one of my greater triumphs. And he was a guy who smoked, drank, never exercised, didn't believe in it, no point in it. Um, and I just talked with him, repeatedly over time and just kind of learned about him and found out, he had grandkids that he really cared about. And that's eventually what I started to talk to him about. It was like, well, I mean, do you want to be there for your grandkids? Because the way, things are going, it's not going to be there. And, um, that was really what got him to go. And he ended up getting on blood pressure medication, which he wouldn't go to the doctor before. And um, quit smoking, quit drinking, quit, so you have to kind of find, um, what motivates people, or if you're the person yourself looking, what motivates you, what do you want to do. um, I was actually just talking to my dad the other day, who recently retired, and he was talking about how we fish all the time, and he was talking about how he might give up getting into the canoe to go fishing. And I told him, when I tell everyone, I said, well, as soon as you say I'm too old to do that and you stop doing it, well, that's when you'll never be able to do it again.
Yep. And it's interesting. Yeah, that's so true. I was kind of similar conversation with my mother when we were talking about the recent snowfalls in the Midwest. For those of you who are watching, if you're not in the Midwest, we've had a very terrible winter, and my grandma is somebody who has shoveled her driveway and her long sidewalk her entire life, and she's approaching, I think she's mid 60s at this point. So she's still got a few good years left, but she's definitely, older, and by some individuals, like, they think that they shouldn't go out there and do it. And aside from it being super, super icy, potentially where she might slip, I tell people, I'm like, it is awesome that she goes out there and spends nearly like an hour to an hour and a half shoveling. And, some people look at me crazy because, we want to help elders and help seniors, but um, taking away those little things is just a opportunity for them to challenge their body. And especially if they're not in a um, consistent, structured physical activity routine, those little activities of daily life, like bringing groceries, picking up heavy objects like laundry and stuff from the ground, go a really long way. So yeah, definitely, it's definitely not useless. And I think what you said about finding something that is important to them to essentially help them realize it's not useless is kind of the end goal. Cool. Okay, so next potential why of some hesitancy, and these two are probably going to be a little bit quicker, but just the fact of individuals being lazy slash tired. I usually don't like using the term lazy because, as individuals get older, they genuinely do just get more tired, and whether that's because of a lack of physical activity, which is probably something to be said there. There's a lot of hormonal changes going on in their bodies. Um, they may not sleep too well at night, in general, so there's a lot going on there. Um, and I think when it comes to being tired, again, going back to talking with them and letting them know that a little bit will go a long way. So if you're tired, you don't need to come in and do your hour to hour and a half long workout you did when you were 20 years old. You don't need to push through something. Going for a 10-minute light walk will go such a long way. It'll likely wake you up a little bit, and it it'll just help a lot. So I don't know if you have anything to say about just being tired and lazy. I think anyone goes to being lazy as kind of a really easy thing to jump to. Oh, you're lazy. Oh, you're unmotivated. But there's a lot more going on than that. And I think it's just our jobs to kind of steer them into something low hanging fruit, if you will.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's like anything else. It's what you make a priority. And I think that's why you have to find why it's important to you. There's, I use this example all the time. I don't know. It took me way too long to realize this, but like at one point in my life, I was like, man, I don't want to cook. I just want to like go get Arby's. And I realized by the time like I went and I got my wallet, and I like put my shoes on, went and got in my car, drove to Arby's, waited in line, ordered Arby's, drove back. I was like, oh yeah, got my fast food. It took like 45 minutes, or whatever, at 30 minutes.
That's what
I was like,
DoorDash is for now. You don't have to
yeah,
move.
that's the make it work. But I just thought about that, and I was like, this was not faster than me just cooking at home. I don't know. Sometimes you just have to think about things. You have time and places where you can exercise, and like you said, it doesn't. I think sometimes the standards you see, like exercising 90 minutes a day, or they can be really intimidating for people, but especially if you're someone that has some level of special needs, a senior. that smaller amount of physical activity, it's absolutely not a waste. It's, building a base, and it also, helps in a multitude of ways outside of just the, cardiovascular improvement that you get from doing, 30 consecutive minutes of activity.
Sure. Yeah, and I think sometimes those small wins with the little movement bouts, like for example, a walk, I said, gives people some confidence to try to take on other tasks, or maybe even do a structured exercise program, which previously they might not be able to. I mean, there was a lot of individuals that you and I worked with where all it took was a small walk across our little exercise area without using their walker, for them to realize like, oh my gosh, like I can do a lot more than I thought I could. And then, weeks and months down the road, they come up to us and said like, I just did this like completely by myself, like almost shocked. I definitely think there's a huge psychological component too, that once they do get out and just start moving a little bit, even if they are tired, it helps a lot.
One of my, sorry to make this a little longer, but I know I have told you this before, but one of the things that really stood out to me was when I was working with the individual working on the sit to stands, going down into chairs and standing back
Sure.
up. That's just a really important thing for seniors to be able to do for safety.
Anyone.
Um, anyone. Um, but she came to me later, just as you were just saying, and she told me that she had not actually left the community for, or not, or but not left assisted communities for years, because she was nervous that in public restrooms, if they didn't have a bar, she couldn't pull herself up after going to the bathroom. So she had limited herself, in very much into, she wouldn't go shopping, she wouldn't leave, because that was her concern. And that was something that we were able to, work on and give her that confidence and that independence back.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. Yeah, I think those little stories too are really good for the feelings of uselessness. Like you tell me, is wanting to get out off the toilet without your help of an aid useless? Absolutely not. That's
Mhm.
something people should be able to do. God forbid an accident for most of their life. For sure. Okay, so the last thing that I had down for kind of the why of seniors being hesitant is just lack of general knowledge of how to get started. And I think this is kind of the most common thing, and what people would agree with is super, super prevalent. And why I think it is good that there are individuals either getting exposed more to working with seniors, but also people just wanting to work with those populations more, because um, that's really what it's going to come down to, is just individuals having good professionals to work with or lean to, and just allowing it to not be as intimidating, is kind of what I think.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know where to start, especially when you have things like, we that new step is awesome,
Yeah.
for people who have, joint issues and things, because there's
The
people.
seated elliptical, for anyone watching, that's the best way to describe it. So you're in a chair basically, and you can move your arms and legs at the same time. It's for people who are in like a strength and conditioning. It's like an assault bike, if you will, but you can basically in a reclined seat. So it's very comfortable, very low impact, super super good. So just for
But
context.
that's yeah, that's good. That's good context. But that's a great piece of equipment for people to get started on. But that's not something a lot of people have ready access to. So it absolutely can be tough to know where to get started. Um, that's why I said reaching out to a professional can be helpful. Um, but the fear of not starting to do anything, there's definitely things people can do on their own, starting to go for walks, things like that. um, but I do, I I do think that there's going to be a lot more focus on seniors and on special populations and special needs as we're moving forward. But
Yeah. Well, just as I said, like at the beginning of this, like technology is going to get even better. Medicine's going to get even better. I mean, like the life expectancy right now is like, you know, uh, high 70s, low 80s, I believe, which is pretty high. At least I think it is. And it's really cool to see medicine, how far it's taken us. And hopefully, as people, again, this is just me being hopeful, take care of their bodies a little bit more. There's hopefully going to be more initiatives to get people to be healthier. That's just going to improve because that's the average. That's your average Joe. And for most people, working out is not average. So those people who are living, 78 to 80, whatever years old, they're kind of the norm. So if you take care of yourself a little bit more, just I don't know, think for perspective how far you could go.
mm,
And I also want to say, when it comes to lack of knowledge, that it is intimidating for a senior potentially who goes into a gym for the first time and sees all these ripped, buffed out 20 something year olds lifting heavy weights. There's people like sprinting on the treadmill and stuff. And maybe they've never even stepped into the gym before. How are they going to feel? Because I know personally, my father, who is mid 40s right now, I just started to get him into working out, and that's how he feels. And he is way less self conscious than a senior, at least in my perspective. So, just for context for individuals watching, how they might feel. So, I think that's a pretty good basis of potential, some of the hesitancies for older individuals to get started. So next, I just wanted to talk about some simple things that health professionals can do. And we've already kind of briefly touched on some of these. It's going to be kind of a repeat, but I think it's all super important. So um, the first thing that I had, and probably the most important thing, and I think Tim and I would agree on this, is just talking with the individual and understanding what they think their limiting beliefs are, understand where they've come from, what triggers them, and ultimately what's their end goal, what's important for them. Tim already mentioned this too. I don't know if you have anything to add when it comes to that one, but
well, I mean, it's I've learned through my career that showing people that you care by listening, goes maybe as far as anything else. Um, and I know, like, when me and you had discussed, sometimes when we even had like intakes with people, we'd say like, "Oh, what's what's your health history?" And they'd say, "Oh, nothing." And then when you actually talk to someone, they're like, "Oh yeah, except for that spinal stenosis surgery and a slip disc and stuff like that." But outside of just getting the background of the health information, again, finding what's important to that person. I think it's hard for a lot of people to exercise just for the thought of being fit. Um, but if there's goals in mind, if there's um, wanting to fight the aging process, still being able to do the things that you want to do, I think those are just important things as a health professional, to talk about, to bring up, um, just relate to that person and make it personal for them, for their journey, make them. I think that helps with even enjoying the process personally, but I'm a little biased.
slightly. Yeah. No, those are all really good points for sure, for sure. Um, one of the next things that I had written down was to, then this is kind of a combined one, but to know the limitations of the individual, based off of what you've seen and what they've told you, but also to not underestimate and challenge them to what they can do. I think for a lot of seniors or special needs individuals starting to get into this stuff, when they first work with a coach, maybe the coach is like super, super hesitant to do anything that is going to stress their body at all. And I think this is coming um, kind of from the physical therapy world, PT world, where it's very slow and steady, very like methodical and like, just a million reps. Like, don't move this way. If you do, like, you're going to, I don't know, hurt something super bad, which is again, for some people, okay. However, that then instills again the fear into them, which is that like if I do move this wrong way, or like if I don't do this exact exercise the way that I've done it for a million times, like my spine's going to explode in half. Um, so again, that kind of comes with framing the right stuff and frame of mind, but then challenging them on what they can do. I One of my favorite stories that I remember telling Tim. I was working with a resident who actually had very bad vision issues, and we were just doing a very very slow walk on the treadmill, and he accidentally nudged the speed increase up by like a couple miles an hour to the point where he was like nearly sprinting for his capabilities. And that's just the fact of the matter is he was literally sprinting on that treadmill for at least like 2 to 3 seconds before I killed the switch. And it just showed me that like, wow, like I would never do that again with him, but he still was able to do that. His abilities were a lot higher than I thought. So kind of understanding again, like there is limitations, but um, these individuals we work with can do a lot more than we think. It just takes a little bit of trial and error and potentially them showing you.
Mhm. And I think a lot of times they don't know that they can. I mean, I doubt he knew he could do that either. You know what I mean? So that's just, it's just keeping an open mind about things, and just learning from the individual, keeping an open dialogue.
Definitely. Important exercise science thing. You need to give yourself a reason to adapt. And after physical therapy, doing your like leg extensions to infinity and beyond, there may be some benefit just for getting some blood flow. But besides that, you're going to need to do a little bit more at some point. And I just think that perception of doing more needs to be a jump to like barbell squats or something. That's kind of where a professional can come in and be like, no, 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 we can do this little tiny thing and it's going to challenge you a little bit more. But you're going to progress even more, get a little bit stronger, etc. Um, cool. Okay. Do you have anything else add to that, or no?
I would put for health professionals, just don't be afraid to reach out to other professionals in different fields. I know I got quite a bit of experience just shadowing physical therapists, and I worked with some physicians at Mercy Hospital. Um, I don't know if everyone's always going to be receptive, but that would be something that has helped me. Um, in my profession. So that's something that, I just something that I would recommend if it's something you're interested in.
Yeah, no, that's a super good point. I mean, you never know. Um, you never know when you're going to need somebody with a specific set of skills. And I think having a lot of people in your back pocket is super handy, not only for like immediate things, but potentially down the road for sure.
Absolutely.
I like that. And then what can help for, so this is something we've talked about, but again I think is good to reiterate. Understanding their reasons for being active. Um, obviously if an individual just wants to get enough leg strength to get out of a chair again, doing a lot of useless things like I mean, I could go down the list, but
Hmm.
again, like just having them do like a million miles of walking a day, or just different things that aren't specific to their exact goals, that's going to make them feel like what they're doing is useless.
Mhm.
And also make them feel like they're not being heard. And as you said, that's something that's super important when we're trying to listen to them and understand.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that initially drew me to athletics was the science and the specificity of thinking exactly how are we going to make this person better at what they need to be better at. That was the mentality of strength and conditioning, injury prevention and things like that. And I think that exact same strategy comes into play when you're working with individuals. If you're trying to address their needs, their wants, um, the things that they're not able to do that they want to be able to do, train them for that, to have that strength. Um, Obviously there's a wide array of fitness things that need to be worked on cardiovascular, but, make a focus point, the things that they want and are going to benefit from.
Yeah. And I think explaining to them like different things that you're doing and like how it can help. I'm actually working with my grandmother right now, and one of her knees, it hasn't been operated on, but like there's I think some cartilage has been lost over the years just from kneeling down. She's done like childcare for like 20 years, so she like this repetitive kneeling up and down with children has been like super consistent through her life. So one of the knees that she uses a lot for that is very I guess you could say worn. It's not really worn. I don't know what you want to call it. Something's not quite right to where there's not quite as much strength in it. And in me doing stuff with her, I'm doing a lot of unilateral like leg strength stuff to work on those imbalances. And every time I do it, even though I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, explaining it again to her and saying like, this is why we're doing this. It's leg strength, leg stability, and this is how it can help you. Again, goes back to helping them understand the purpose of it, but also is a good point for you to know like hey, like this isn't this is what they need to be doing, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's a constant motivation. It's a reminder. It's just like when you're talking in conversation with someone and you repeat something that they told you, and it shows that you're listening. If you are, a session down the road, you're like, oh, hey, we're doing this, by the way, because I know that you struggle to get up and down at the dining room, and that's embarrassing for you, and you wanted to make that an easier process. So we're actually doing core exercises right now, which doesn't seem like the exact same, but yeah, when you explain that to people, they're much more connected to that exercise. Like, this is for me, that I
Yeah.
understand why this.
Yeah. Well, I think it shows that you care too, because you've thought enough about like, hey, this is their end goal, and these are the steps we need to take to get them there too. So
Definitely.
super, super important. Well, that's pretty much it for all the stuff that I wanted to talk about. I think we had a lot of good points there, talked about a lot of good things. I think some just general take home points is to understand and talk with special needs individuals when you're working with them. That's got to be one of the most important things. Knowing that they're going to be pretty intimidated potentially when they're coming into this, and just being a caring and understanding person when they're getting started, making them realize that the barrier to entry, as in the things that they can do right now that are going to help them, are very small and will lead to a very big result in their life.
Mhm.
Those I think are kind of the big take home things. So um, that's pretty much it for today. Tim, I appreciate you coming on and talking. I'm sure we'll do more of these. This was really good. If
Sure.
you have any contact information, I know LinkedIn. I don't know if people would want to reach out to you professionally at any point, but
Sure. You can contact me through LinkedIn. My full name's Tim Eilers. I also, through email, if you'd like, my email is Tim Eilers, which is Eilers 87 @gmail.com. So if you had any questions or wanted to reach out to me, you can use either one of those methods.
cool. I'll put that information in the description of the video too, so you can find them through there. So um, thanks again, guys, for clicking on the video, joining us today, wherever you're watching us, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.